and Nalini, there are these very crucial voice samples that he'd be confronted with. And Nalini, the voice sample is an issue that India and Pakistan have grappled with. India has repeatedly asked Pakistan to provide voice samples legally, diplomatically, and the 2611 probe derailed because Pakistan did not cooperate. What are the voice samples that India is repeatedly seeking? Hafiz Saeed and how many others, Nalini?
Well, Gaurav, what we're given to understand is that with all the evidence that the Indian agencies have against Tahawwur Rana, they've been working towards building a completely watertight case. Now, of course, the finer aspects of that case have still not been revealed to us, considering the fact that the trial is still not begun in the case, and there is no way that the prosecution will give any chance to Tahawwur Rana or his possible defense to be prepared for the kind of evidence that they already have against him. But you're completely right when you say that once Tahawwur Rana is taken in for questioning by the NIA, he will be confronted with all of the evidence that the NIA as well as the other agencies that have been working on the case ever since the 2611 attacks have actually gathered in the course of all of this time. And remember, Gaurav, the legal team that has been working on this case has just not been roped in right now. Yes. They have been working even on Tahawwur Rana's extradition. So they have been coordinating with the US agencies as well. So they're completely in the know-how of exactly what kind of evidence is there with the Indian agencies, what kind of a case was made out by the US agencies, and on the basis of that they're building this watertight case against Tahawwur Rana to ensure that A, the trial goes on, begins as soon as possible, and B, the trial also concludes as soon as possible. Because remember, Tahawwur Rana from his side is going to try every trick in the book to try and delay the trial for as much as possible so that a final sentence regarding his punishment cannot be pronounced by the court. But it is the prosecutor's job to ensure that the trial remains expedited, that they ensure that they have a watertight case so that there are no loopholes that can be exploited by Tahawwur Rana or his lawyers. It remains to be seen who will really be representing him, whether he'll get his own lawyer or whether there'll be a court-appointed lawyer that will be given to him. So all of those aspects are still going to be uncovered in the coming days once the proceedings before the NIA court begin. But today is the day one when Tahawwur Rana will be facing a court in India, and there will be several more dates. He needs to be prepared for that. There will be several days where he will have to appear before the court, where he will be on the facing end of the questions by the prosecutors, and not just that, the judge as well. And we are hoping that the trial in the case can begin soon so that the victims of 2611 can be finally brought to justice.
You know, when I was covering this case in Chicago, David Coleman Headley, he just threw Tahawwur Hussain Rana under the bus. David Coleman Headley turned approver, and he completely ratted out Tahawwur Hussain Rana, indicated he was the mastermind, indicated. And I must also tell our viewers this, and it's very interesting, the moment Federal Bureau of Investigation got wind of this case, these guys are very smart. Nalini, Amit and Shivani, these two Pakistani terrorists, Tahawwur Hussain Rana and David Coleman Headley, they feared that their homes were bugged. They feared that their mobile phones were bugged. So when they wanted to talk about this case, 2611 Mumbai terror attacks, they would get into their car and they would go out for a long drive. And in that long drive, Amit, they would talk about this case. But the FBI, as they submitted in the Chicago Federal Court, were a step ahead. They bugged the car and they started tracking that car from a couple of kilometers away, and they would record every bit of conversation that was taking place inside that car. And that is how a lot of information, not just about 2611 Mumbai terror attacks, but also the Copenhagen terror attack. Imagine, highly educated men. Tahawwur Hussain Rana is a doctor, a medical doctor in Pakistan, an army officer. He plotted a terror attack with David Coleman Headley in Copenhagen. They wanted to blow up a newspaper office in Copenhagen for printing a certain cartoon, a caricature there. So the tentacles of lashkar-e-taiba are spread far and wide. But Amit, bring us details of the gaps that your NIA sources are telling you, gaps that they want fulfilled in this case now.
You're right, Gaurav. You know, these were highly talented individuals, and possibly that's why they were also given the task of carrying out planning terror attacks, not only in India, but other countries as well, including the Denmark terror attack that was being plotted by Tahawwur Hussain Rana. And in fact, you know, just look at the meticulous planning that this terror plotter, Tahawwur Rana, had done, that his first world immigration company, which facilitates immigration, he brings in David Coleman, gives him that authority to operate under his cover in India, to come to India so that nobody suspects his activities and nobody suspects where all he's raking, which all places he's going. In fact, the very fact that there was a plan to open the first world immigration office even in Mumbai on instructions of Rana, and that gave him a cover to recce the places, to note down the fine details and eventually execute that terror attack where India had, bleeded. So this is a question for the investigative agencies, because this particular individual has been away from the hands of the Indian agencies. Certainly India wanted to get hold of Tahawwur Rana in order to fill those gaps in the investigation. Number one, as to who had put David Coleman into his hands. What is the ISI connection? What is the Pakistani agency's connection? Was the funding coming from Pakistan? If yes, who were the people that were routing that money to Chicago and then eventually to India? All these gaps that are in the investigation will be now filled by the NIA when that, probing begins, when he is confronted with the questions. Moreover, in this particular case, the NIA will be far more prepared, because remember, in this particular case, we have certain individuals who have been already put to justice. So, in most likelihood, it shouldn't take a lot of time to carry out the investigation.
We'll get you a clipping of then Chief Minister of Gujarat, Narendra Modi, who, when Tahawwur Rana was let off, had pledged or words to that effect that terrorists must be brought to justice and everything must be done to bring terrorists to justice. And finally, this terrorist is being brought to India. That's the kind of conviction that is required to ensure that that message goes out to Pakistan, that that message goes out to anybody who will kill Indians or kill our people, that there is a system and that system will hunt you, track you and bring you to justice wherever you are. The Narendra Modi government has done it in the case of Tahawwur Rana. There are many others who've bled India. And it remains to be seen. One Balakot has happened. One Tahawwur Rana has happened. A surgical strike has happened. What more is done to send across that message to that state sponsor of radical Islamist terror, Pakistan, that terror is no longer an inexpensive option for Pakistan's Ghazwa-e-Hind against India. This 1000-year war against India will only take Pakistan and Pakistanis to their graves.